Hi, I'm Stuart. Welcome to my YouTube channel, or welcome back if you watched the previous video. I recently watched a video from readwithcindy, and this video is about the 2024 Asian Readathon, which she is doing. She's done them in past years too. And for this readathon, she offered 5 prompts. And I looked at the prompts and I tried to select books that would fulfill the prompts. And I found that I was getting anxious trying to do it. So I decided to come up with something separately to read in May. And I will say that I will put her channel in the description, and it is well fleshed out, and there is stuff on Storygraph that you can find resources to help you do this. But I just decided I want to go in a different direction. And I'm going to just read why May is a month that she has her readathon, and why I want to select some books to read in May. And May is Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. It is observed in the United States. It recognizes the contribution and influence of Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islander Americans to the history, culture, and achievements of the United States. Before I talk about the 8 books by Asian American authors I selected to read in May, I'm going to talk about 3 books by Asian American authors that I read in April. Unlike the books I'm going to plan to read in May, this wasn't planned. There was one book I had on hold on Libby for a while, which I read, and there was 2 books that I got from the library itself. And these books might, if you choose to read some books by Asian American authors in May, or any other time actually, you don't have to specifically confine yourself to a month. These might be books that you might want to look into. After I talk about the 3 books by Asian American authors that I read in April, I'll talk about the 8 books that I selected to read in May by Asian American authors. I already own all of these books. The first book I'm going to talk about is Mimi Lee Cracks the Code, a Sassy Cat Mystery by Jennifer J. Chow. And before I talk about the book itself, I'm going to read a brief author bio, which is from the back of the book. And before I read that author bio, I will just show a picture so you can see what she looks like. Jennifer J. Chow is the Lefty Award-nominating author of the Sassy Cat Mysteries. The first in the series, Mimi Lee Gets a Clue, was selected as an Overdrive recommended read, a Pop Sugar Best Summer Beach read, and one of BuzzFeed's top 5 books by AAPI authors. She's active in Mystery Writers of America, Sisters in Crime, and Crime Writers of Color. Connect with her online and sign up for her newsletter on her website. And just since I said that, I'll just show you. This is her. You can see her social media at the bottom of this page and her website. This book is a cozy mystery. I believe it's the 3rd in the series, but it's the first I've read. It stars Mimi Lee and her cat Marshmallow. Mimi Lee owns and runs a pet grooming business called Hollywoof. Marshmallow is a telepathic cat. He understands human speech and he can read the thoughts of Mimi. Mimi, though, does not understand cat speak, so she has to reply to Marshmallow verbally. She hasn't told anyone else about Marshmallow's ability, which is probably a good idea for several reasons. Mimi Lee's friend and benefactor is Pixie St. James. She upfronted the money for Mimi's business. Early in the book, she is accused of a murder, and so the remainder of the book is Mimi and Marshmallow trying to prove her innocence and determine who actually committed the crime. I actually found the solution to the mystery satisfying. One thing I wasn't quite as satisfied with is I didn't think the motivations of what I'll call the shady characters quite justified their actions. The characters are well fleshed out, and I did like them. I liked Mimi Lee. I like Marshmallow. I like her sister. There's a kind of an obtuse cop, but even he has a cat, which is a positive thing in my mind. The only reason I dropped this book from a 4-star to 3.75 is simply because, as I said, I question some of the motivations of the shady characters. But overall, I really enjoy this book, and I would recommend this to anyone who wants a cozy mystery with a engaging heroine and a telepathic cat and wants to watch them solve the mystery together. I wouldn't let the fact that I rated this 3.75 deter you from reading this book. I really enjoyed it. Next, I want to read a short passage from the book so you can get an idea of the writing style. Marshmallow exuded a good mood the next morning. Seemed like the extra massage and pampering had relaxed him enough to lower his usual grumpiness level. I'd enjoyed my own lunch outing yesterday with Alice and hummed as I set out his morning dish. The Chapel of Love ringtone broke into my peaceful mood. I had reserved this precise song for a matrimony-minded ma. I decided to put her on speaker because she typically talked in a loud voice, and I didn't want to lose my hearing anytime soon. Mimi, she said, her voice booming even more than usual. I speak to Maymay yesterday night. Alice tell me you go to Cat Alina. In the background, Marshmallow purred his approval. That's how the name should be pronounced. I can't believe she told you already. What had Alice been thinking? She says she's so busy. Must watch Pet Shop this week. Cannot audition for date show. Ayo. Just wanted to point out too that I'm wearing this Blackpink hoodie, which is kind of appropriate for me talking about May and the Asian American authors I plan to read, and also the books I read in April by Asian American authors. They're in fact my favorite K-pop band. Next, I'm going to talk about The Kiss Quotient by Helen Wong. This was a book I borrowed from Libby, and I returned it, so I don't actually have a physical copy to read or even the ebook to show you. I learned about this book from E.B. Reads. It's her favorite romance of all time, and after reading it, I can understand why. Before I start talking about the book, I'm just going to read a brief author bio, which I got from the back of the book. Helen Wong is that shy person who never talks until she does, and then the worst things fly out of her mouth. She read her first romance novel in 8th grade and has been addicted ever since. In 2016, she was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, in line with what was previously known as Asperger's syndrome. Her journey inspired The Kiss Quotient. She currently lives in San Diego, California, with her husband, 2 kids, and a pet fish. Stella is 30 years old. She works as an econometrician, and I wasn't familiar with the word, but basically she comes up with functions that predict people's behaviors as far as why they buy things. She's really good at her job. She makes a lot of money. Her workplace is her safe place. She can be found even on a Saturday night at the workplace. Stella's mother wants her to find a man, get married, and have babies. Regardless of the fact that Stella is really successful at working, that's her primary focus. Stella's autistic, and she's ashamed of this fact. Because she's autistic, she doesn't always understand the nuances of communication. One of her co-workers makes an offhand remark, which frankly he probably should have been written up by HR for, but because of this offhand remark, she decides that she needs to be better at sex, and if she is, she'll be able to attract a man. So she decides to hire a male escort. His name is Michael, and he has a lot of issues of his own. And the remainder of the story is them trying to, for the most part, learning to communicate with each other and understand each other's perspectives. There are some, what people generally refer to as spicy scenes in here. There's a little graphic, but not excessively so, and they're certainly not gratuitous. And I think they are necessary for the plot to move forward. I really liked Stella and Michael, and I really wanted them to succeed. I recommend this book to anyone who'd like a romance where characters have to work really hard to be able to have a relationship together. As I said, it does have a few spicy scenes, but in no way should they deter someone from picking up this book. I rated the book 5 stars, and I really like the book a lot, and I recommend it. The chapters in this book, they alternate Stella's and Michael's perspective. They're told in the third person. I'm going to read passages from one of each of their chapters so you get an idea of the style of the book. The first passage is from one of Stella's chapters. Stella rested her forehead in her palm and methodically went over the attributes in herself she associated with her disorder. Her sensitivities to sound, smell, and texture, her need for routine, her awkwardness in social situations, and her tendencies toward obsession. Over the last week, she tackled all of them, but the last 2. She didn't know how to tackle those. Next, I'm going to read a passage from one of Michael's chapters. Later that week, Sophie manned the shop and watched Nagoi, while Michael took May to the doctor for a monthly checkup and blood work. It was a short drive, but it felt like forever, with her mom crossing her arms and boring holes in the side of her head with her eyes. He cranked the music volume up and focused on the road. She turned the radio off. I can't take it anymore. You walk around all day like a cat who's lost his mouth. You don't talk. You're scaring the customers. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Boy You Always Wanted by Michelle Quash. This is another book that I got during my recent visit to the library. Before I talk about the book itself, I'm going to give a brief author bio, and it's from the back of the book, and I'll also show you this is what she looks like. Michelle Quach is a writer and rom-com fangirl living in Los Angeles. Her debut novel, Not Here to Be Liked, was selected as the best book of the year by Kirkus, Parents, Bank Street, and NPR, as well as shortlisted for the Waterstone Children's Book Prize. You can visit her online at michellequash.com. This book is a YA romance. The 2 main characters are Francine and Ollie. They're both 11th grade students at the same school. Francine is a person who's really devoted to her family. She's a type A person. She works really hard to support her family, and she also works really hard in her schoolwork. She doesn't really allow herself to do too many fun activities, and she also doesn't really allow herself to experience her emotions like she should. Ollie's a person who just kind of tries to get by. He wants to do well enough that he can get by, but also kind of slip under the radar. He and his parents have grown distant over the years because they own a business and they spend most of their time either there working on it or at home on their computers, still working on it. Ollie and Francine were friends a few years back, but they had a falling out, and since then, they haven't really spoken to each other. They basically ignored each other. Francine's maternal grandfather immigrated to the U.S. from Vietnam. He still holds to a lot of the traditional values that he was raised in. I should say they're Chinese Vietnamese, both families. And Francine's grandfather was recently diagnosed with terminal cancer. One of the traditions he holds on to is that he thinks that the lead male in the family should pay tribute to their ancestors, both verbally and making offerings to them. But he had all daughters, and his daughters had all daughters. So he has no male grandson who can take up this mantle. Because of this, he feels like he's a failure. Because Francine is really devoted to her family and she wants her grandfather to be happy, she comes up with a plan to have someone pose as a honorary grandson. And the person she decides to try to get to do this is Ollie. She has a lot of difficulty convincing Ollie to do this, and the book goes from there. There is a lot of difficulty for Ollie and Francine to kind of come together again. And there's also a lot of difficulty in both of them in their interactions with their families. I really enjoyed this book. There's a lot of discussion about familial issues. There's a lot of discussion about the difficulties faced by immigrants and their children or grandchildren that were actually born and raised in America. The characters are complex. I recommend this book for people who are interested in a YA fantasy with a lot of complicated relationships and people who have to work through a lot, and there's a lot of depth in this book. I rated this book 5 stars. This book alternates chapters from Francine and Ollie. They're told in the third-person perspective. I'm going to read a passage from one of each of their chapters so you get an idea of their writing style. And the first chapter is one of Francine's chapters. Gia doesn't say I told you so, but she probably should. I guess I might have to rethink the plan, I text her as I walk home from the library. It's seeming kind of unlikely at this point. Gia's reply is diplomatic. You tried. I know Gia thought the plan was unnecessary, and I get it. Maybe I would too, if I didn't see firsthand how awful things are for Agung. He and Apu have been at our house for a few days now, staying in my bedroom. Meanwhile, I've moved to the spare room, where I sleep on an old narrow mattress that has seen multiple aunts and second cousins through their first night in America. I don't mind though, because there's no question Agung is too sick to be anywhere but here. His cancer, I learn, is unresectable, which means chemotherapy is the only treatment option. And though he's had just one injection so far, he's already experienced many of the typical side effects: fatigue, headache, nausea, poor appetite. The one I didn't expect, anger. Now I'm going to read a passage from Ollie's chapter. Damn, so it was all Francine. Rollo and I are at the Costco food court, our usual afternoon hangout. It's situated outside the store, which means you can eat there even if you don't have a membership. Crucial because neither Rollo nor I do. Today, though, Rollo needs to replenish inventory for Rollos and more, so he's borrowed his cousin's card. He does this every month, which is why he's confident he won't get caught. I'm way better looking than Nick, but they probably think all Chinese people look the same anyway. The Costco food court is great because, 1, it's only a 2-minute drive from Hargis, and 2, home to the best hot dog you can get in Jacaranda for $1.50 or less. It's the kind of food that has such a great value, the price actually starts to affect the taste in a good way, of course. Rollo is a fan of the cheese pizza and also the berry smoothies. He does love himself a berry smoothie. Next, I'm going to talk about the 8 books that I selected by Asian American authors to read in May. I'm probably not going to say too much about most of them, but I might say a little bit about some of them. The first one is Happiness Falls by Angie Kim. The second one is Girls Like Girls by Hayley Kiyoko. Hayley Kiyoko is a singer-songwriter, musician of some note who I like a lot. I am a bit concerned about this book though, because I did see a couple of booktubers who are fans of her music who really wanted to like this book and didn't. But I have it, so I'm going to read it. The next book is To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. This is a pretty famous book. I did read part of it before, but I never finished it. Not because I didn't enjoy it, but I'm very much an emotional reader, so I flip here and there. I am going to start from the beginning because it's been a while. And I already have book 2. The next book is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. Michelle Zauner is the leader of the popular alternative rock band Japanese Breakfast, but I think it could arguably be said that this book has made her even more famous. I have both the autographed paperback and the autographed hardcover, and I've had them for a while, so it's time that I got around to reading this book. I expect that I'll enjoy it. The next book is Dear Girls by Ali Wong. I've actually read this book before, but I saw that she narrated the audiobook, and for a little while I've wanted to listen to that because I want to see what her narration was like. I expect it to be really good because she's a really good comedian. I'll probably read along with this book I'll probably read along with the physical book while I listen to the audiobook, but my main reason for revisiting this book is I want to hear her do the audiobook. The next book is This Is Salvage by Vuhini Vera. The author is a American of Indian descent, and I don't think I've ever read a book from a Indian perspective before, so this will be interesting. It's a bunch of short stories. The next book is Soulmates by Susan Lee. And the final book is A Living Remedy, a memoir by Nicole Chung. I expect this book to be a difficult read because I have a little idea what it's about. And I also have the second book from her, but I want to read this one first. The second book's a memoir too. So that's the 8 books I hope to read in May from Asian American authors. It's probably a pretty aggressive TBR because other books may come through from Libby or something like that. But if some of them bleed into May, that's all right. And I'm not going to confine myself to 1 month anyways, reading Asian American authors. But maybe this month will get me reading some of the books that I hadn't read before and should read. Be interested to hear if you have any books by Asian authors you plan to read in May, or books you've read at any time by Asian authors. They could be Asian American, or they could be actually citizens of Asian countries, whatever, but that you've read that you might recommend. If so, please reply in the comments. If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe. Hope you have a wonderful day.